Friday morning, and that means it's time for Inside the Numbers on GameDaySportsRadio.com. As always, joined by Michael Bedard from OTM Sports out in Las Vegas. Mike, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great, Coach. Looking forward to this weekend. Don't know if it'll live up to a couple of weeks ago, but also we have the Breeders' Cup this weekend, so a busy week. That's basically the Super Bowl of horse racing.
Well, I don't know anything about horse racing, and some would argue I don't know anything about college football, but I'm going to pretend that I do. Let's get right into our featured games of the week. Clemson at Notre Dame. This will be on NBC, 7:30 kickoff. These teams have only met 6 times, back in the late 70s for a couple of meetings. And then when Notre Dame entered into the agreement with the ACC, they've met most recently twice back in the pandemic year of 2020. The Notre Dame won a regular season matchup in South Bend, and then the Tigers got revenge in the 2020 ACC championship game. That was a 34-10 final. Notre Dame won a few weeks earlier before that championship game up in South Bend, and that was a game that, if memory serves me correct, went to overtime. And Clemson was shorthanded that game, and so they kind of got their revenge in that championship game. As far as the Irish this year, Marcus Freeman started out very sluggish. A lot of people were saying, hey, is this the right guy? But he seems to have steadied the ship a little bit in South Bend. And Clemson, this will be a good litmus test for the Irish to see how far they've come since Ohio State and then that loss to Marshall.
Coach, Clemson's a 3.5 to 4 point favorite. The total is 44. That's a very low total for college football. The reason, there's showers and wind in the forecast. Now, a lot of recreational bettors, they think about rain and snow, but they have less effect on the points scored than the wind, and you know that as a former coach. If you can't, even if you're not a passing team, if there's no threat of the pass due to wind, then it's going to keep points are going to be at a premium. The wind's the number one factor. Irish, they've had a lot of success versus ACC teams as far as point spread. They've covered 6 straight over ACC opponents, but they haven't had a lot of success at home. They've only covered 1 of their last 6 home games, but as a home underdog, which they are this Saturday night, they're 4-1 straight up and against the number as well, and that goes all the way back to 2013.
Yeah, you're talking about the success that Notre Dame has had against the ACC. The last team not named Clemson to beat the Irish from the ACC all the way back in 2017, and that was Miami.
Yeah, and Miami couldn't beat their way out of a paper bag right now.
Alabama, LSU, that's going to be the ESPN game at 7 p.m. It's a Saturday night in Tiger Stadium. Doesn't get much better than that with the fog rolling in off the Mississippi. Alabama leads this series 55-26 and 5 ties back in the days when we still had those. Bama, they still have their sights on Atlanta and the SEC championship and playoffs, but they can't afford to slip up in Baton Rouge. Bryce Young seems to be fully recovered from that shoulder injury. There's no doubt in my mind he's the best player in the country. He means more to his team than any other player. That being said, Jaden Daniels, the transfer from Arizona State, he's improved weekly at quarterback for the Tigers. It's really the first time that LSU's had any stability at quarterback since Joe Burrow graduated. Brian Kelly wasn't a real popular choice with the fans when he was hired, but they warmed up to him just a bit. Beating Ole Miss, of course, helped. But he's going to have a tall order against the Tide. But if the Tigers can figure out a way to get a win on Saturday night, that will quickly elevate Kelly's status on the Bayou to icon. Because as crazy as this sounds, after watching that opening night blunder against Florida State, LSU, if they win out, they go to the SEC championship game with 2 losses.
Coach, if they were to win out throughout, they would be the first team with 2 losses to make the college football playoff. They were also the only team to play in a BCS title game with 2 losses, and they won that game over Ohio State. LSU needs 1 win for us to cash our season win total. We took them over 6.5. I feel good about it. I just don't know if it's going to be Saturday night. The Tide's a 2-touchdown favorite, and I'm with you on Bryce Young. That kid looks like Allen Iverson on a football field. I mean, Alabama could be 5-3 without him. As far as this series, historically, the road team has done very well, and that goes back 30-plus years. But the last 6 meetings, the road team has covered all 6. But the Tide, they haven't performed well on the road as of late. They've covered just 2 of their last 7 road games. I'm going to take the points here. Not a big play, but I'll take LSU in the points.
Tennessee at Georgia. That is the 3:30 Eastern CBS SEC Spotlight game. Is there any possibility that this game will live up to the hype? I don't know. Now, this is a great series. Georgia leads it just by 26-23 and a couple of ties thrown in there. The Dogs have won 5 straight, 10 out of the last 12 in this matchup. The Vols, they look sharp in that Kentucky beatdown on both offensively and defensively. Georgia, both offensively and defensively, were sloppy against Florida at times. They won't be able to get away with that Saturday against Tennessee. Stetson Bennett, the 25-year-old walk-on, he's already got a natty under his belt and reports close to $1 million in NIL deals. Stat line is not great. 9 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, but he wins. He does a great job of leading his team to victory. Tennessee's Hendon Hooker, outstanding season. He's in the Heisman talk and deservedly so. I think the key in this game is Bulldogs outside linebacker Nolan Smith. He's the best pass rusher on the field, or would have been, with 3 sacks, 7 tackles for loss, and 16 quarterback hurries. He had to take himself out of the Florida game with an injury. He was listed as doubtful, but now they're saying he's out for the season with a torn pectoral muscle. He will not play on Saturday or the rest of the season. We know where Georgia is as a program under Kirby Smart. We also know that the Vols have made tremendous strides under Josh Heupel. We'll find out just how far they've come tomorrow. And for the Vols to win, though, all the focus has been on their offense. That Vol defense has got to step up and have the same type of performance they had against Kentucky if the Vols have a chance.
Agreed. And we have number 1 versus number 3. Number 3 is an 8-point favorite. That's not uncommon, actually. The look-ahead line in this game a couple of weeks ago, Georgia was favored anywhere from 11-13. Then Tennessee dismantled Kentucky, and odds makers have a lot of respect for the Wildcats. Well, that line then adjusted down to -9, and now the public has bet that number down to 8. And, Coach, the public is Joe Public, Square Public, informed public, they're all on Tennessee plus the points here. 90% of the tickets, over 85% of the money, all on Tennessee. That's worth mentioning because a lot of times you don't want to be with a big number like that. Bettors are taking Vols in the points. They're also looking for a high-scoring game. Why not? That big marquee game against Alabama, 52-49. The 2 offenses are great. Tennessee's number 1 in the nation, putting up 49 a game. Georgia, 6th offensively, 42 a game. With that said, both teams also have elite defenses. You referred to Tennessee's defense. They're not getting credit because of Hooker in that offense, but they're playing solid. And there's going to be a lot of pressure on these teams. That goes without saying. It's a big marquee game. It means a lot to both teams. And sometimes that causes teams to play tight. So I'm going to go under the total in this game.
Mike, let's move on to our picks of the week. How did we do last week, and what have you got this week?
You won and improved to 6-2 ATS. I lost and fell to 4-4 ATS. This week, I'm going to go to the Roadrunners of UTSA. They're on the road. It's a pick or one. UAB's quarterback is hurt. He may play, but I don't think he's going to be 100%. So I'm going to take Texas San Antonio in basically a pick'em game Saturday.
Okay. I'm going to go with the Kansas State Wildcats. They're hosting Texas. Texas is was it 3.5 point favorite?
2.5.
2.5.
They open pick, and then the public bet them, so you're fading the public, which I like.
Yeah, I'm going with the Wildcats here. I think that defense is going to give Quinn Ewers a little trouble. And again, as long as Kansas State still doesn't have their heads in the cloud, we should be okay. We should be okay there. Well, Mike, we appreciate your time as always, but this early Friday morning, and we will get back with you Sunday morning before you start your NFL day. And we'll take a look back at these games and any surprises that we have on Saturday.
I look forward to it. Enjoyed it, Coach.